From Hawaii News Now and the Honolulu Star Advertiser, this is Campaign 2014, Race for Governor, live from the Sullivan Conference Center at the University of Hawaii Cancer Center.
Aloha, good evening everyone. Welcome to the UH Cancer Center here in Kaka'ako. Early voting is less than a week away. We are talking about the future of Hawaii tonight. I'm Keahi Tucker with Hawaii News Now.
And I'm Tanya Joaquin. We are down the home stretch. 20 days ago until the election, this is the final gubernatorial debate, a town hall sponsored by Hawaii News Now and the Honolulu Star Advertiser. Now, you'll notice many bodies here in the audience. We've invited 32 UH political science students. They've been chosen to ask questions that will drive the night.
Our goal here tonight is to keep the conversation going in the right direction. We're hoping the answers will be concise and on point. We'll try to help with that. The candidates do not know the questions they'll be asked.
And of course, we have students with Aloha Feel in the audience. They have agreed to be polite, respectful, and attentive. No cheers, jeers, or outbursts, with the exception of right now. We'll throw that rule aside as we welcome the candidates here for our debate. First off, Mupi Hanneman. Duke Iona. And David Ige. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us tonight. We know you have seen each other in many forums. We appreciate one last chance to educate our voters. And we are going to cover a lot of ground. Feel free to be seated or to work the room if you'd like. Mr. Iona, you won the draw and get the first question of the night. And I should mention, all of our candidates will have 60 seconds to address this question. Can you please identify 2 programs or policies of the Abercrombie administration that you will reverse or repeal in your first 6 months in office if elected?
I'd have to say first of all, let me just thank all of you for being here tonight and our sponsors. I'd have to say the first program that I'm going to look at very seriously is the Hawaii Healthcare Connector. I think that is something that I've heard loud and clear from many across the state. I think many in this building have questioned not only the validity of it, but also the expense of it and the cost of it. And the other program that I would look at, and although I support it, is the early education childhood program that we have right now. As you know, the legislature approved the funding and they approved a pilot program, but it's in limbo in regards to whether or not that will be the program of the future. You have an amendment on the ballot, Constitutional Amendment 4, that you're all going to vote for, but the program itself is something that hasn't been approved and agreed upon by, I think, by everybody in the educational field. Thank you.
Mr. Hanneman, you also have 1 minute to address this.
First, thank you to Hawaii News Now and the Honolulu Star Advertiser for sponsoring this town hall. And I also want to say to the residents in 808, as we brace for another hurricane, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, and also thoughts and best wishes to the President of our country as he gathers leaders around the world, around our United States, I should say, to deal with the Ebola crisis. First 2 things. Number 1, I feel very strongly that the Hawaii Health Connector system is something that I would not follow through on. I think the case in point has really been made. But the fact that we spent $125 million for 10,000 people to sign up for this. So I would like to see how we can go forward, cut our losses, but still ensure that those 10,000 people are taken care of. Education is something that I feel very strongly about. And there have been cuts that have been made by the legislature that the governor had no choice but to approve. Why are we cutting funding for the medical school that we're here tonight? Makes no sense to me. We have a shortage of doctors in our community of 750. We need to restore that funding. Also cuts in the education program and the like. All of those things are something that we will work very hard in the beginning to restore. Thank you.
Last but not least, Mr. Ige.
Thank you very much for that question, and thank you to Hawaii News Now for hosting this town hall meeting. It is a very interesting format. I look forward to this night's evening. I would say a couple things. Clearly, for me, it's about education. And it's not so much about repealing as really re-emphasizing. It's about empowering schools, about really trusting those closest to the children to make the decisions about how to move the schools forward. I've seen remarkable transformations when we get the right leader into the right situation at the right school. And I don't believe it's a cookie cutter where every school across the state should be following the same lockstep. It's about working with each community, about being willing to make the investments that they they need to move their community forward. The other item that I would like to talk about is the Constitutional Amendment. As you know, I am opposing it just because I don't believe we have the funds. We need a better plan, and the private schools are not in the communities where they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Hanneman, you'll go first on this question. It's about the economy from UH student Patrick Fontanilla.
So as the cost of living continues to soar, as it gets more and more difficult for my generation and future generations to purchase a home and find well-paying jobs, how will you comprehensively diversify Hawaii's economy and attract high-growth industries with good-paying jobs right here in Hawaii?
Thank you, Patrick, for the question. I really want to take advantage of the fact that the United States is shifting to the Pacific Asian basin. We have a wonderful opportunity, I believe, given what we bring to the table in terms of our knowledge, in terms of the people that live in this part of the world, in terms of our relationships. So we need to export our professional consulting expertise. We need to export our knowledge-based industries. Take advantage of all of you that are graduating from the University of Hawaii and our college systems throughout the state, and say to the rest of the world, we are capable of providing that expertise, be it in tourism, science, agriculture, astronomy, health, many things across the board. I also believe we still have to strengthen our number one industry, tourism, because tourism has a trickle-down effect and helps small businesses. So I'm talking about cultural tourism, heritage tourism, educational tourism, health tourism. Hawaii is a great place to invest and to visit, but also a great place to learn, and we can create good, solid jobs that will make sure that when you graduate from school, you have a governor with the right leadership to say, come home, stay home, and we're going to make this a great place to live, work, and play.
Over to Mr. Ige. How would you diversify Hawaii's economy?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I think it's fitting that we're sitting here in the Cancer Center because this building has been at the center of our efforts to really diversify our economy. I am proud to have been able to walk the talk. I've been an advocate for technology and economic diversification for all of my career, creating venture capital programs, making investments. I retired from GTE to take a position in a startup so that I could walk the talk. It really is about empowering our school. It's about making and giving our young people the belief that they can be successful. It's about investing in our schools. It's about investing in our university, creating the innovation and entrepreneurial spirit in all of our people. And most importantly, as I've talked with serial entrepreneurs and people who have done it over and over and over again, it really is about instilling in the spirit of the young people the belief that it can and will be done in Hawaii. Thank you.
Mr. Iona, 1 minute.
Patrick, thank you for that question because I want you to stay home. I want all of you in this room to stay home. So it really boils down to this. I'm the only candidate here who is committed to promoting a business-friendly environment. And how we're going to do that? It is this simple. It is about getting government out of the way of businesses. So we need to attract, we need to expand our economy. And how do we do that? With our naturally competitive industries. Right here, technology. Technology would be the perfect place for any technology industry. Why? Because we have the location, we have the climate, we have the people, we have the culture, we have everything that we need. There's just two things, and I need for you to help me to do that. I need for you to vote for Duke Iona and Elwanahu. We need to cut the cost of living, and we need to make sure that our educational system is that much better. Because if we take care of those two factors, I guarantee you that any technological company will come to Hawaii, and they will incubate and will be that much better.
Thank you. I have another education-related question. This one is first off for Mr. Ige. It is from Else Tele about tuition.
I'm a junior at the University of Hawaii, and I can barely afford tuition, housing, and food with the job I work. If tuition continues to rise, I will probably have to get a second job in order to keep attending, and I fear that my GPA will suffer as a result. Can something be done so that college can remain affordable for students, not just to stay in school, but excel as well?
Thank you very much for that question. You know, this has been a question that the legislature has taken up in the last 12 months, and it really has been, as Chair of Ways and Means Committee, I did have a hearing and had the university appear before us because it is something that is a concern all across the state about the rising tuition. And we did ask them, and the regents did vote to have a moratorium on the tuition increases. And our point was, what is the reason for you raising tuition? The regents had told us that it was simply a case of we wanted the tuition to be in the median of peer institutions across the state. And we told them that that's not acceptable. It really ought to be about what you're funding, why you need to raise tuition, why is it that you believe, and how would you invest those dollars? I would have to say university regents and the executives had heard the legislature loud and clear, and they are putting a moratorium in tuition increases, and we'll see on a going forward basis what's the appropriate tuition level.
Over to Duke Iona on rising tuition, low cost of jobs.
Thank you for the question. A couple of things. First and foremost, I want you to know that I pain with you. I have 4 children of my own, and we've had to go through all of this. But first and foremost, we have an innovative program that we want to adopt, and I'm so excited about that. It's called Early College. It will give a high school student an opportunity to go from grade 9 to 14 and earn an AA degree as well as a high school diploma without any cost. That can cut down the cost significantly if you want to continue and maybe get now a BA or a BS or even a master's degree or a PhD. I would throw this out to the University of Hawaii because I've said this in other forums. I said the problem we have at the University of Hawaii is the politicians insert themselves into leadership, and as such, leadership can't root. But I throw this one out because I heard about this one. Why don't we have this as part of our program? If you enroll for this year, 2014, 2015, that tuition is frozen until you graduate 4 years from now. We can just throw that one out. We'll give them an idea. Thank you.
The early college education, I support that because it's already existing in the public schools. Kaimuki is doing it, Waipahu, and that's a great incentive. But here's the thing. I'm the only person amongst you tonight that's actually done a budget from the executive branch. So you can rest assured when I send that budget down to the legislature, I will prioritize funding so that we don't have to raise tuition. I said as mayor, the number one responsibility of a mayor is public health and safety. The number one responsibility of a governor is education. It will pain me a lot to see our local students who want to come to the university and cannot afford it because they can't pay tuition. So it will have the ultimate priority. When I send it down to the legislature, I will do what I did as the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu. If it's a priority, then you go down and you collaborate. You go downstairs and you make sure that that is not going to be cut because it is a priority. And that's what the pledge that you have for me to make sure that our local students can afford to go to the university or community college system.
Mr. Iona, you'll answer first. This next question comes from Kayla Costino. It's about poverty.
I volunteer at Catholic Charities, and there are so many families on waiting lists trying to get assistance to help pay rent or for affordable housing, but we just don't have the resources. I'm really interested, what is your long-term plan about the issue of poverty in Hawaii?
Kayla, thank you very much for that question. The long-term plan is exactly what I stated earlier in regards to the cost of living. Opening up Hawaii, making it a business-friendly environment. Because for you and everyone else in the state of Hawaii, it boils down to that. Being able to live, work, and play in Hawaii. So if you can get a great education, and with that, a job that is, within this 21st century knowledge-based economy, you're going to be able to not only live and work and play here, but you're going to also be able to thrive in the future. So we have 2 programs, and I'm going to expand on this maybe a little later, and it's for affordable rentals and affordable housing. I'm so excited about this. Our affordable rental will take 25% of the corporate taxes, shift it to the rental housing trust fund. Right there, boom, within 6 years, we got 2,000 more units for all of you. We're calling this our HOPE program for affordable homes. It's just simple. By simply paying rent, you'll be able to save enough to buy your own home. And I will expand on that later, but it's so exciting. Thank you.
Mr. Hanneman, your plan on poverty.
I think it's all about making sure we make improvements in 2 areas, housing and jobs. I'm preaching a collaborative approach with working with all county mayors called the Hawaii Council of Leaders, so that together we can identify ways in which we can create more affordable rentals, more affordable housing. And I think that will take us a long way as opposed to in the past where they've done it in silos. In terms of jobs, yes, we want to provide good quality jobs. And that's why the emphasis has to be on a governor's ability to grow the economy, to create more jobs. And that being said, with what I said earlier, of being able to enable young people or people who still want to be in the workforce, jobs that they'll be able to achieve and aspire to with the fact that the economy is growing all across the board. And that takes someone who has the ability to attract outside investment to Hawaii, companies that want to do business here, to stimulate this economy. And we have wonderful assets that we can put on the table besides having an academic center of the University of Hawaii, but being a strategic location in the Mid-Pacific area to make sure that people can go to work. And obviously job training, educational skills will help them stay employed.
Mr. Ige.
Thank you very much for that question. It really is about growing the economy. I do believe as governor, job one of the important priorities is really working to grow our economy. And that comes in three specific areas. It is about investing in the visitor industry. It does create the lion's share of jobs in our economy. More than 170,000 jobs are created by the visitors coming here. And so it's about being smart. It's about opening a second international portal at Kona Airport so we can attract more international visitors. We do know that international visitors spend more money in our economy, create more jobs. It's about the governor being proactive about federal investments. We do know that the Congress is in gridlock on the budget. The federal budget will be shrinking each and every year over the next decade. We need a governor that's active and proactive in pursuing and convincing the federal government that Hawaii is a strategic location for investments. And the third really is about economic diversification. Thank you.
Mr. Hanneman, this next question is for you. It comes from Alyssa Marie Cow.
Pending the justification that Hawaii is an occupied country, how do you address the illegal status of the state of Hawaii, being that you will be the executive officer of this illegal American extension of power?
Well, I really believe that we are part of the United States of America. I appreciate everyone's right for freedom of speech or their desires and aspirations of what we should be. But at the end of the day, I'll stand very firm on the fact that we are part of the United States of America. We have a constitution here that we have to continue to defend. And for those that feel unhappy about the system, then let me reach out and try to collaborate with them so that they can feel that we are part of one ohana. Anyone who lives here should always feel that they're welcome. Anyone who comes here should feel that they are welcome. But I think it's important from an indigenous Hawaiian standpoint to understand and appreciate that. That's why I've said you need to slow down the Native Hawaiian Royal Commission's effort to create what they want is within a nation, because I really believe, as we saw with the Department of Interior hearings, there's still a lot of unrest. There's really no unanimity on what that model should look like. So let's take 2 steps back, and for those who are pressing for that question that you talked about, try to bring them into the circle of discussion as opposed to ignoring them and making them feel isolated. We need to respect all people's views, and that's what I've always felt about.
Thank you. Your time is up. Excuse me. Mr. Ige, you also have 1 minute to address.
Thank you. It is very clear that in 1893, a grave injustice was done to the Hawaiian people. And we have learned a lot, our communities have learned a lot about what occurred in 1893. But we can't go back. It's really about how we move forward. The one thing that became very evident in the recent hearings by the U.S. Department of the Interior is that there needs to be significantly more conversation within the Hawaiian community itself. There needs to be a broader dialogue that includes all of the Hawaiian community about all options in moving forward on self-determination for Native Hawaiians. So as governor, I definitely would be looking at helping to define that process, to facilitate the conversation amongst Hawaiians. But most importantly, this is a significant conversation that needs to include the entire community, because at the end of the day, we need to move forward as Hawaii together.
1 more minute.
Thank you very much for that question. This only shows, as a Native Hawaiian, I understand that for many Native Hawaiians, in their minds, in their souls, in their hearts, there is still a Hawaiian kingdom here in Hawaii. And I acknowledge that, and I respect that. And this is why I said in my platform in regards to Native Hawaiian sovereignty and governance, I would say that I take an Oiwi perspective. I take a Native perspective in regards to trying to bring the community together. Yeah, I think also, like my colleagues here, that Kanai'olavalu did not have consensus and as such is not ready for the community to come together. But self-governance in the Native Hawaiian community has to be driven by the community. And as a Native Hawaiian, I want to take responsibility for that. I want to be at the forefront of that. I want to be the mediator, the facilitator of that all, and bring our Hawaiian community together so we can have consensus. But true consensus is not what we have right now. And until that can happen, that's the only time that we can depend and we can develop our consensus in regards to self-governance in the Native Hawaiian community. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about GMOs. Mr. Ige, you're first here. The question is from Alex Bitter.
Mr. Ige, Hawaii has attracted national attention for several proposed laws that would limit the growth and distribution of genetically modified organisms at the county level. On the state level, in what ways do you think GMO products should be regulated?
Thank you very much for that question. At the state level, I believe a couple things. First and foremost, I do believe that the state has an obligation to ensure the health and well-being of our communities. We have an obligation to regulate pesticide use, to make sure that our public and our people know what pesticides and where they're being applied. And most importantly, the state has an obligation to ensure that they're being applied safely and within the guidelines of what they were intended to do. In terms of GMO labeling, I do believe that labeling is a federal requirement, that the federal government controls how the products are labeled. In terms of growing things, I truly support the farmers. I believe that farmers should be engaged and allowed to grow whatever crops they believe are most productive for them. State needs to be smart about how to organize that. We have lots of state land that we can use as buffers between organic farmers and GMO farmers to assure that there's no cross-contamination.
Thank you. Mr. Iona.
I'm of the position that the GMOs should be kept local. In other words, home rule should control. But I understand what's been going on in regards to the Kauai ordinance and the lawsuit that has, subsequently been heard. And now I believe it's with the island of Hawaii. So I understand that. So eventually, it seems like it's going to make its way back to the state. When it gets to that level, as mentioned earlier, I think what it boils down to is this. It boils down to really what do we want in regards to agriculture and food security? Are we going to balance it in such that we protect food security, we protect our farmers, and we make it available to everyone, or are we going to limit it? I think the science is been clear as far as what I've seen, and up to this point in time, I would not be in favor of a total ban on GMO products.
Mr. Hanneman.
I've had a strong history of support for agriculture dating back to my days with one of Hawaii's largest diversified ag seed brewing company. And through the years, and even as mayor, I was very supportive of agriculture, and I support all forms of agriculture. And I think it's important to put on the plate, in my opinion, the science does not support the fact that GMO should be banned. And I want to see it continue to be a part of it. But I am concerned about pesticide drift. And I think there's certain controls and measures that can be enacted by the Department of Agriculture. Now, here's the thing. The Department of Agriculture is the Rodney Dangerfield of the state departments, okay? Less than 1.7% of the budget goes to agriculture. So how can you expect them to do these type of enforcement programs and the like, or promote agriculture? So I want to bring it up from where it is in the back seat, put it up front, support it, and if we're going to label, it should come from the federal government so that we are all on a level playing field throughout America and not just Hawaii.
Thank you all. Let's talk about taxes. I get this question, Mr. Iona. Every governor since George Ariyoshi has faced a fiscal crisis which required either layoffs of state workers, furloughs, or tax increases. If you run into a fiscal crisis, which of these would you put into place first?
Mm-hmm. I'm the only one here who's had the opportunity and the experience to be through something that's been very difficult on the fifth floor in the executive branch. In our second term with Governor Lingle, we saw the bottom fall out in the economy. And I can tell you this, some difficult decisions had to be made. In response to that specific question, obviously it's what I stated earlier. We need to grow the economy. We grow the revenue that way. I'm not an advocate of growing our revenue by way of taxes. I think you've seen that in the last 4 years. My colleague to the left here has increased taxes by over $800 million. He's increased the government spending by over $1 billion. And that's just not the way to go. So we find ourselves right now in this fiscal cliff that's coming up next year, in which we're going to have to look and see how are we going to make it work now in government. But when you take it to that level, how do you expect to do anything but have that only option of raising taxes? But that's not my option. Thank you.
Mr. Hanneman.
Once again, you can make promises of saying what you want to do, but have you actually done it while you were in office? As mayor of the 13th largest city of the United States, I had to make those decisions. Where to cut, where to increase revenues, and how to grow the county's economy. And every year that I was a mayor with that great talented team that I had at City Hall, we had a budget surplus carryover every year, from a low of $134 million to a high of $423 million. I know how to balance the budget. I know how to set priorities, because that's what is important. The last thing you want to hear is government is going to raise your taxes. So you have to identify inefficiencies. You have to reduce duplication. This collaborative leadership that I'm talking about with the other counties, the mayors and the state together, seeing how we can collectively do things better to help all the counties and the state, but most importantly, at the end of the day, make the tough decisions, collaborate with the council to make sure that you have a budget surplus instead of a budget deficit, and you're always threatening folks with a tax cut, with a tax increase.
Mr. Ige, layoffs, furloughs, or tax increases?
Thank you very much for that question. You know, I'm the only candidate here who actually had to face the tough decisions, and for 4 years, I have had to balance the budget, looking at whether we do increase taxes, lay off people, or cut the budget. And I want to say that I was facing a $1.2 billion deficit, larger than any of my other candidates here. Most importantly, we were able to balance the budget without any layoffs. It really was about focusing on eliminating suspensions of taxes, really business-to-business taxes. It was about increasing taxes on the wealthy, about being selective about how you would do that. And most importantly, it really was about cutting the budget. I've cut budget requests by more than $1 billion, more than any of the other candidates here. It really is about having discipline. And I've always believed to walk the talk, to look at what people have done rather than what they say. And I have 4 years proven of what I would do to balance budgets.
I guess they couldn't answer none of the above. It's not a choice that we like. Now time for the candidates to ask each other a question. Once again, we've allotted 1 minute response time as well as 30 seconds for rebuttal. We'll start with Mr. Iona. Your question for Mr. Hanneman.
Well, we just talked about taxes, Mufi. So how can the people of Hawaii trust that you will not raise taxes and or increase the cost of living, but yet you did so as mayor when you raised the taxes for rail, and now you're promoting a bigger public project called Super Ferry. So can you explain how you're not going to raise taxes when indeed you did raise taxes for rail?
Duke, you're using very selective memory tonight. I did not raise the taxes. The state legislature had to raise the tax. Okay? That's the general excise tax. I didn't ask. I lobbied for it because I really believe that we needed rail. And I also said that the other counties should have the option to do that 0.5% for the things they wanted to do. Most importantly, Duke, you're also missing out the fact that your counterpart, Governor Lingo, was a strong supporter of rail. In fact, she said in her initial speech when I was a mayor, I'm looking forward to working with the new mayor of Honolulu on a rail transit solution for Hawaii, because both he and I have been longtime supporters of rail. So I don't know what world you were living in back then, but certainly the GET tax that I asked for, Senator Ige voted for it, and the majority of the legislature, because we were trying to follow the express will of the people. The Super Ferry idea is about the fact that 87% of the people want it. And had you and Governor Lingo done the environmental impact study, it'd still be sailing today. My commitment is to do what the people want. I want to bring that back because that's what we need to do. Thank you.